In the world of billionaires, some stories are as bizarre as they are tragic. Robert Maxwell's story is one of wealth, power, and mystery, culminating in a death that still raises questions to this day. A media mogul, a self-proclaimed genius, and a man with an iron will, Maxwell's rise to prominence was just as extraordinary as his downfall. But it was his untimely and mysterious death that captivated the world, leaving many to wonder. Was it an accident, a murder, or something else entirely? Maxwell's life story reads like a novel. Born in 1923 in Czechoslovakia to a Jewish family, he was no stranger to hardship. His early life was marked by tragedy, with his father dying in a concentration camp during World War II. Maxwell himself served in the British Army, eventually becoming a war hero. But despite his humble beginnings, Robert Maxwell would go on to become one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the world, a media empire. In the 1980s, Robert Maxwell built a media empire that spanned continents. His acquisition of the Mirror Group newspapers in the UK was one of his most high-profile investments. Through hard work, charm, and sheer determination, Maxwell turned his empire into a force to be reckoned with. He wasn't just a businessman, he was a showman. Maxwell had an uncanny ability to charm people and make them believe in his vision, whether they were investors, politicians, or the general public. His reputation grew, and so did his wealth. Maxwell's media empire included newspapers, publishing companies, and even control over major broadcast networks. His flagship acquisition, the Mirror Group, was a British newspaper group that boasted an impressive reach and influence. By the late 1980s, Robert Maxwell had become a household name. He was even elected as a member of Parliament, cementing his status as a powerful figure in both business and politics. However, despite his success, Maxwell's financial practices were far from transparent. Many began to question how he was able to afford such an empire, and rumors of financial irregularities began to surface. His lavish lifestyle, constant spending, and reliance on debt raised suspicions about the true state of his finances. Some speculated that Maxwell might have been using his finances to hide the truth about the true state of his finances. The fall. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, cracks began to show in Maxwell's empire. It became clear that Maxwell had been using his media companies as collateral to borrow enormous sums of money. His spending had far outpaced his earnings, and the debts were mounting. The press, which Maxwell once controlled with an iron fist, began to turn against him, digging into his finances and revealing discrepancies that would have been impossible to ignore. The tipping point came in 1991, when it was revealed that Maxwell had been embezzling millions of dollars from his own company's pension funds. It was a shocking revelation that sent shockwaves through the business world. Maxwell had spent years building an empire, but it was all based on a foundation of lies, deceit, and financial mismanagement. But even in the face of mounting scandal, Maxwell continued to present himself as a visionary, refusing to acknowledge the depth of his financial troubles. However, the walls were closing in on him. The media mogul was under investigation for his embezzlement, and it seemed like only a matter of time before his empire would collapse. The mysterious death. It was on November 5, 1991, that Robert Maxwell's life would terminate in a manner that was both sudden and inexplicable. Just a few hours after he had disembarked from his luxury boat, the Lady Ghislaine, his body was found floating in the Atlantic Ocean close to the Canary Islands. Despite the fact that Maxwell had drowned under questionable circumstances, the specifics of the circumstances surrounding his death are still unknown to this day. Almost soon after Maxwell's passing, a frenzy of speculation began to follow. It was a terrible accident, right? While he was attempting to fix something on the yacht? Did he hurt himself? On the other hand, was it something much more ominous? There was a school of thought that held that Maxwell had taken his own life because he was unable to cope with the increasing burden of his financial downfall. Fourth, some others believed that he had been killed in order to prevent him from divulging information that could be harmful to others. Maxwell's death was determined to be the result of an accident by the official investigation, which found no proof of any kind of criminal activity. However, a whole lot of questions remained unanswered. How did Maxwell's body come to be discovered so far away from his yacht? I am curious as to why it took such a long time for his body to be found. In addition, why did Maxwell, who was known for his brazenness and self-assurance, appear to have vanished without a trace? Theories and conspiracy. The enigma that surrounded Robert Maxwell's passing has given rise to a variety of hypotheses, each of which is more intriguing than the one that came before it. Maxwell is said to have staged his own death in order to escape the rising strain that was caused by his financial difficulties, which is one of the most prevalent ideas. A number of people are of the opinion that he may have fabricated his death and then escaped to a different nation, where he would be able to spend the rest of his life in tranquility, away from the constant surveillance of the media and the authorities. There is also the possibility that Maxwell was murdered by people who had seen enough of his manipulative and dishonest behavior and had grown tired of it. During his career as a businessman, Maxwell was notorious for attracting formidable adversaries, and there are those who believe that his passing was the consequence of a personal grudge. It is probable that someone in his inner circle, possibly one of his business partners or acquaintances, came to the conclusion that it was time to put an end to Maxwell's voice for good. It has been hypothesized by some individuals that Maxwell's passing was associated with his connections to the Israeli government. Maxwell was well known for his support of Israel and maintained close relationships with high-ranking leaders in the Israeli military and intelligence agencies. Both during his time in the country, a number of individuals who subscribe to the theory of conspiracies have proposed that Maxwell was involved in clandestine operations for the Israeli government, and that his death was a component of a wider geopolitical scheme. The aftermath. It was not until after Maxwell's passing that the full scope of his financial difficulties became apparent. In a short amount of time, his empire fell apart, with his businesses filing for bankruptcy and his debts continuing to spiral out of hand. The cash from the pensions that he had stolen were never recovered in their entirety, leaving thousands of workers and pensioners in a state of extreme financial devastation. Maxwell's family, including his children, were forced to pick up the pieces of his shattered legacy after he suddenly passed away. Robert Maxwell's legacy, however, continues to be a problematic one, notwithstanding the scandals that have occurred. There is no doubting the influence that he had on the media sector, despite the fact that his business actions were definitely questionable. The empire that Maxwell built made an indelible effect on the world, and he was a visionary who altered the face of publishing and television. If there was one thing that Maxwell's legacy afforded us, it was definitely the visionary who altered the face of publishing and television. However, the enigma surrounding his passing continues to be a mystery. Is it possible that Robert Maxwell was a tragic figure who gave in to his own avarice and ambition? Another possibility is that he was a man who was caught up in a web of conspiracies and intrigues, a pawn in a much broader game. The story of Robert Maxwell is one that continues to intrigue and mystify people, even if it is possible that the truth will never be revealed. Is it possible that the truth will never be revealed? However, there is one thing that is definite. The life and death of Robert Maxwell serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the dark side of wealth. Maxwell's rise to power was meteoric, but his fall was just as swift and dramatic. His death, surrounded by so many unanswered questions, remains one of the most intriguing mysteries in the world of billionaires. For those who study the lives of the rich and powerful, Maxwell's story is a stark reminder of the price of success and the dangers of living in the shadows of wealth. It's a tale of greed, ambition, and betrayal, but also of the fragility of human life. In the end, Robert Maxwell's death serves as a haunting reminder that no amount of wealth or power can shield you from the consequences of your actions. While we may never know the full truth behind Robert Maxwell's death, his legacy remains one of intrigue, mystery, and the timeless question of what happens when a billionaire falls from grace.